I think a new team has arrived in the AFC West, and their name is the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah.
Herbert stops, launches deep. Jalen Guyton, he's got it!
Herbert fires open, making the grab. Mike Williams down the sideline. 17-yard line, look out again. Carr, intercepted.
Boom, we're back with another episode of the Shock Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Lawrence. With me is my co-host, Zach Alfers, from the phone, having some technical difficulties.
It's very on brand, right? Last episode of the year, and my computer's going to break down just like Joe Lombardi's offense and the Chargers in the second half on Saturday. One thing you have to admit about the Shock Therapy Podcast, we stay on brand over here.
We stay on brand, and I want to keep this upbeat. I don't want to talk about just the whole loss the whole time. I actually want to bring up some great news. I feel like it's done deal.
We need it.
So we got some big updates coming from the Shock Therapy Podcast. Kind of rebranding just the Shock Therapy because we got a couple different things going on. Number one, we are joining a new network. We're joining Belly Up Sports. If you haven't heard of Belly Up Sports, there's 50 plus podcasts on this network. They have a whole website with articles and a ton of other good information. You're talking about partnerships with some key brands, Yeti, Skull Candy, as well as Manscaped and some of the other ones. Just like a much bigger introduction into a new and exciting opportunity for us. How are you feeling about our upgrade? I like to think of it as a promotion. How are you feeling?
It's absolutely an upgrade. It's exactly what the Chargers need to do at offensive coordinator. I know Joe Lombardi got canned, but I couldn't be more excited for this new chapter for the Shock Therapy Podcast. You mentioned all the partnership deals. One you didn't mention, which I'm super excited about, they got a partnership deal with a portable beer bong. Who doesn't need a portable beer bong at their disposal? I know I would love one. I haven't got one yet, but waiting for that transition to take full effect because, I'm stoked. We could talk about the Chargers blowing the 27-point lead, the first team to win the turnover battle 5-0 and still lose. But at the end of the day, I'm a Charger fan. I'm excited for what's to come. And that's kind of where I'm at.
You gotta look forward to good things. And I'm really excited about this opportunity. I love the fact that it's kind of like a family, which is what the Say It Again network kind of was as well. And nothing against the Say It Again network. It just seemed that people were starting to go their own way. And it was just time to move on to something different. I love all those guys over there. All those guys are a great group of guys, and they brought us in open arms. They helped us grow. And I have nothing but respect for every single one of them. I'm so excited for a lot of the things that they have done. And, as we start to transition and move into season 3 of the Shock Therapy Podcast, there's just a lot of things good going on with us right now.
That feels good to hear that. Season 3 of the Shock Therapy Podcast coming soon. We're going to take very few time off, and we're going to get right back at it. It's like we didn't miss anything. And again, just super excited to be here. Thanks for everybody who's followed us along the way. And then, just stay tuned because, a lot more to come moving forward.
And some of those other things coming. I've been working on a new modernized logo, so you guys will get a chance to look at that. We will be moving into some kind of new intro. I don't know what that's going to look like yet. By the way, I don't know if anyone has seen, but I've actually started our own blog, our own website. We don't own the domain yet because I don't know if it's going to really kick off, but I've been kind of posting little articles here and there. So if you get a chance to go and take a look at that, it will be up on our website. You'll be able to see some of that. And let's not forget that I am still working on the magazine. Magazine's almost finished. There's just a lot rolling with shock therapy right now. And I'm just really excited about where we're headed as we're moving into, like you just said, as exciting as it sounds, season 3.
New chapter, new beginnings. I'd like to consider us a podcast with Super Bowl caliber potential, and I think we're just gonna have to wait and see how that plays out for us.
All the talent in the world,
excited.
we just gotta find a way to utilize it. We gotta call the right plays, get the right shot plays in there,
and establish the run.
One of them.
Yeah, we're doing it. Good things are happening.
All right. Let's talk. Let's bring the excitement down a little bit. Let's talk about this Chargers 30-31 loss. There was a lot of good things to take away for the first half of it.
That's it. That's all I want to talk about.
Completely dominant in the first half, especially when Justin Herbert only had to go 40 yards to score. Wow, what a meltdown. I mean, there's no other way to describe it, but there's some players that played their ass off. First, I just want you to tell me everything I need to know about Asante Samuel Jr. and the record he owned, the outstanding play. Put it out there for me. Give it to me.
Well, first player in their playoff debut to have 3 interceptions in a playoff game. Absolutely unheard of.
In one half.
In one half. Absolutely sticky in coverage. Has the ball skills to go along with it. Yeah, he's a little bit undersized, but he is a behemoth of a dog. I'm so excited to watch the rest of his career play out because we have a hell of a player. Got him in the second round. A lot of people slept on him, took some other taller, less skilled players over him just because of that. That is the nature of the NFL. They like their 6-foot corners. I'm going to take Asante Samuel over lots of them because you can't take what a competitor. And he just puts himself in the right spots to make plays. And I think early on in his career, he was in the right position. Those balls were just getting batted to the turf. He has figured out where his eyes need to be to turn those would-be passes deflected into interceptions, and he was an absolute animal for us. A big reason why our average starting field position in this game was at our own 41-yard line. In that first half, we had 7 total drives. 3 of them were in the red zone already to begin with. 1 was on the 6-yard line. So you can't speak enough about this defense. Offense really just didn't get it done, and I think that's just a reoccurring theme on the year.
Asante Samuel's next year, I feel like he's going to be one of those top dogs, top 5
he has
in the same realm as Jalen Ramsey. Probably more than likely going to get a bigger he's going to be a bigger name than what J.C. Jackson is. I'm not looking forward to his future contract because it's going to be massive, because his trajectory and where he is at right now and where he started 2 years ago when we drafted him, I mean, sky's the limit. He's so good at this point, like way faster growth than his father. I loved everything I saw from Asante Samuel. 6 pass deflections, 3 interceptions, and the guys come around into his tackling, take some bad angles here and there, but he's aggressive. He's physical. He's small, but his heart's big. And he's just been the ultimate playmaker for us this season, week in and week out.
And his total, obviously, I would have liked to see a healthy J.C. Jackson this year. But and I think you got to look at, I'm not going to call it a bright spot, but you got to take, it is something that's helped this team, I think, in the long term, is the straight absolute emergence of Asante Samuel. You're going to have a very, very tough decision next year if you're Brandon Staley, figuring out how to utilize those 3 guys. And Asante Samuel, J.C. Jackson coming back. Hopefully he can be, just 80 to 70% of what he used to be. And then another guy who's had a tremendous resurgence of a career is Michael Davis, coming off of that contract he just signed in the offseason. he earned every bit of that, looking like an everyday corner. So you got 3 guys who can play the outside, gives you that versatility to switch them up a bit, because I know Asante Samuel, right, coming out of the draft, is like he's a slot corner only. He's proved the doubters that he could play anywhere at that cornerback position, and it's a good luxury to have when you're battling for playing position. You got 3 guys to fill 2 spots.
Yeah, hopefully Michael Davis is still with us next year. We'll get into some of the off-season dealings, and I think Michael Davis might be one of those cap casualties because our cap space going into the offseason is not healthy. But that being said, the defense swarmed the Jaguars and really turned Trevor Lawrence into a Nathan Peterman type of game, and somehow they still end up losing it. And I think a big issue with it was the Chargers' issues to sustain drives on the offensive side of the ball, especially in the second half. Yeah, you can point to the missed field goal, but this game really should have been like a 30-3, 40-3 type of game. But Chargers just couldn't capitalize on the big lead. A big major issue that I saw specifically was the inability to run the ball in the second half, and the not even want to. We ran the ball 7 times with at one point a 27-0 lead in the second half. Only 7 total rushes. I mean, for a team, and we were talking about it in the playoffs, you have to be able to run the ball. You have to control the clock, and ultimately, it got Joe Lombardi fired. So our inability to establish a run game hurt this entire team, and it was the biggest weakness I saw because there was no trust in the offensive line. There was no trust in Joe Lombardi's play calling. We came out in the second half, and we continued to throw the ball. If you want to go and go against your tendencies, the tendencies of a normal coach, yeah, I get that you might want to do that on first down. But at the same time, you have to keep an eye on that clock, and you have to sustain long drives. And the Chargers just did not choose to do that at all.
You mentioned the 7 rushing attempts to total just 7 yards. So beyond just the lack of using it, you were just inefficient when you did decide to run the ball. On top of that, last year it was our inability to stop the run that cost us that last game against the Raiders. This year it was our inability to run the ball on offense. And looking at it historically across the board for all playoff games, teams who outrush their opponent have a 75% win percentage. And so last year we couldn't stop the run. This year we couldn't establish the run and got outran by the Jaguars significantly. And it takes away from the balance of that offense. Justin Herbert is unreal when he's allowed to do the play action, get out of the pocket, and just sling the ball downfield. And Brandon Staley, I really still admire the guy, but one thing that I just don't agree on is he says that you don't need a run game to utilize play action, and I think that's absolutely ridiculous. You absolutely need to, if you're going to run a fake, because that's what a play action is, and it's a fake run to a pass. If you're rushing the ball 7 times legitimately and getting 7 yards, I'm going to let you do that run until you prove to me that you can run the ball effectively. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to watch the receivers because I'm going to play into the strength of the team, which is your pass game. On top of that, I just think Brandon or Lombardi's biggest weakness is his inability to play to his players' strengths. Justin Herbert is the best quarterback in play action passes. Even with the inability to run the ball, I don't think we did nearly enough design play actions this year. He just went away from it way too frequently. On top of that, he's just putting his guys in positions, in my opinion, to fail. I know we didn't have Mike Williams, our go-to deep threat, and to substitute that, he uses Keenan Allen to go deep, which I love the guy to death. He had 13 targets, just 6 catches, and a lot of that is because he's running routes 20 to 30 yards downfield where he's just ineffective. When you have a guy like Donald Parham, who's a legit deep threat, I know Josh Palmer hasn't been utilized in that role, but because of his stature and his strong his skill set, which is catching contested balls. I thought he would have been a much better guy to send deep while you let Keenan operate over the middle. On top of that,
we did it his rookie year. We sent Josh Palmer deep in his rookie year, and in Tennessee, that was a strong point, was his ability to go and track the ball deep down the field.
I think that's the biggest reason that Lombardi got canned, because he doesn't understand. I don't know if it's just like what it is, but he doesn't play to his players' strengths. The other one that I wanted to point out was the designed run to Michael Bandy, who hasn't had a rushing attempt since he was an a star receiver at San Diego State. Hadn't practiced it all year. That was a play that we run to DeAndre Carter, who went out with injury in that game. And you've seen it. Michael Bandy jumped out of the way because he wasn't ready for that. How are you going to put guys in those types of situations?
He didn't even know that was designed for him.
And that's what I'm saying. Lombardi just did a very bad job of communicating what he expected and what he needed of his players. And a big takeaway from the Brandon Staley end of the year presser is that he is actively looking for a offensive coach that fits his style of play. Lombardi was just a filler, because when we hired Staley 2 years ago, the guys that he actually wanted weren't there. He went back to you read
that Boltup article too?
Yeah, I think that's where I got it. But again, he didn't want Lombardi. It was a fallback move. He obviously pulls on the strings because they've known each other for a long time. But it was a bad move. We've saw that the last 2 years. And a big thing I think we realized, I think it's in that Bolt Beat article too, we significantly missed Frank Smith, the offensive line coach and run game coordinator, because our run game, 30th worst in the league this year. I think we averaged like about 89 rushing yards a game when we had the
3.6 yards per carry or something like
3.8 yards. Only 5 teams in the league averaged less than 4 yards a carry this year. We're one of them, the third worst, when we had the third best pass offense on the year. So that led our scoring to be about 24 points a game, 15th in the league. It kind of averages out when you have such a high-powered offense or a pass offense. It's crazy how just a horrible rush defense takes you from a team that should be averaging 30 points a game down to 24. And what else can you say? Lombardi's gone. The point of emphasis for whoever comes in and takes over that job needs to be giving Justin Herbert a complimentary run game so he doesn't need to throw the ball 50 times a game.
And let me come out here and say this. I did not come out in support of Joe Lombardi. My whole thoughts on that because my Twitter blew up. Everybody hated me.
You can't say anything.
Everybody hated me. But in my mind and my thinking, there with the offensive scheme that the Chargers have, there is not very many coaches that come from that tree. Pete Carmichael is the only coach who is at a head coach position, offensive coordinator position, who fits that scheme, and he's not leaving New Orleans. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what do we do? What can we do to keep the scheme, build on it, and make it better? Because if you're losing Joe Lombardi and you're not replacing him with a similar style coach, then you're changing the entire offensive scheme, which also means more of the offensive coaching staff is gone. Learning a whole new offensive scheme, it's not an easy process, right? So my whole thought and thinking in it, and I said it multiple times, I don't agree with most of the decisions Joe Lombardi made this year, but how does this change the team? There's so many unknowns now, because now that Joe Lombardi is out and Shane Day is out and Pete Carmichael already said that he's returning, we are going through a whole scheme change. And that's kind of scary, especially knowing that your head coach is still in place. So rarely do you get a offensive coordinator replaced and the head coach stay on, and then they also change the scheme because Brandon Staley doesn't know the new scheme, right? So that's really interesting, something that we have to really look at, because I think it's going to be a brand new offensive coaching staff. I know we only lost 2 right now, but I guarantee you whatever offensive coordinator is coming in is going to want to help bring in some of his own staff, guys that get his own scheme. Nathaniel Hackett, if he's the answer, and where there's a bunch of them, right? But he's going to bring over some of that coaching staff that he had in Denver and in Green Bay. What is that going to look like? So that was my whole thought on it. I was not happy with Joe Lombardi all season long. But that being the case, it's so much of an unknown, and whoever offensive coordinator comes in is going to have total control of the offense, because Brandon Staley is not going to have any idea what to do on that side of the ball.
No, and I think a big problem with Brandon Staley just right now is that he, just like Justin Herbert, is expected to do way too much in a time where he's young. They're both learning. So the reason I'm okay with completely revamping the scheme is because we're bringing back a defensive scheme that is only getting better and was the most dominant at the end of the year. If we could do that for prolong that over the course of an entire NFL season, then the offense just needs to be okay and average. It was horrible when with a lead. If this defense can get us turnovers, it can get us in the red zone, it can get us in positive field position, then we don't need an amazing offense. And I'm okay with changing up the scheme because just something needs to change. I'm happy that it wasn't a complete breakdown and you got a new head coach and 2 new defensive coordinators, because then we're right at the beginning with a franchise quarterback entering his prime. I'm okay with this because I believe in Justin Herbert. I believe in the guys around him, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Those guys are pros. Give me a new offensive coordinator. Give me some new pieces on that side of the ball and show me that we can run the football. I think we're getting some pieces back on defense. Austin Johnson's coming back. We saw the resurgence of Morgan Fox. They got a good defensive line. We got a good defense. We have good pieces. Something needed to change, and I think the front office made the right choice in letting Joe Lombardi go, because to me that was the most glaring weakness of a team that should have honestly been competing for a deep playoff run and just fell short.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk a little bit about these offensive coordinators. I don't know about you, but I think everybody talked about the Jaguars-Chargers game enough this week. I don't think anybody wants to hear more of it. So let's start looking forward, and let's talk about some of these offensive coordinators just a little bit. So obviously we fired Joe Lombardi and Shane Day. Pete Carmichael has already said that he's going to be returning, so he's not going to be an option. So this is kind of what you've got in terms of available offensive coordinators. Greg Roman recently just told the Ravens that he's no longer going to be coaching for the Ravens, no longer going to be the play caller there. I think that situation is probably going to be more of a 1 year off, some sort of early retirement, a sabbatical, if you will. You've got Byron Leftwich, who was just fired, a coach that was an up-and-comer. I did write an article on Byron Leftwich. If you have a chance, go and take a look. It is posted on our Twitter feed. And then the other big name that has been kind of rolling around everywhere, Frank Reich. We are familiar with Frank Reich. I also wrote that article, so you can take a look. And then I'm just going to pick on the next, 6 or 7 or so big names. You've got Joe Brady, quarterbacks coach for the Bills. You've got Nathaniel Hackett, former head coach of the Denver Broncos and offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien was the head coach for the Texans. He spent the last season as the offensive coordinator for Alabama. You got Cliff Kingsbury. Right now he's in Thailand, one-way ticket. Man. That guy just was like, okay, I need a break. I need to get out of here.
Don't talk to me.
Bobby Slowick is an interesting name, a really young coach without that experience as a play caller. But as San Francisco's passing game coordinator, you can't talk enough about how well they have been at that position, going down to, Mr. Irrelevant over there and making
3 different quarterbacks and not missing a beat
on either single one. You got Brian Johnson, the Eagles quarterback coach, for really developed Jalen Hurts into a superstar this season. The last two I'm going to talk about are college coaches. Matt Weiss, who is the offensive quarterbacks coach, passing game coordinator, something of that nature with Michigan. And then you got Todd Monken, who is the offensive coordinator for Georgia. Those are the big names. There's a couple other ones I'm thinking of, like the Bengals quarterbacks coach. Any thoughts on any of these guys? Because it feels like one of these guys more than likely is going to be the answer, who has earned at least an opportunity to be the play caller for an NFL franchise.
Yeah, I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't put too much thought into it or much research into any of those guys. Obviously, Frank Reich did really well for us, earned a head coaching role because of his success here with Phillip Rivers. And
let me stop you real quick. So Frank Reich earned his success under the Eagles and taking Carson Wentz, turning him into an MVP caliber player, and also turning the quarterback who won the MVP of the Super Bowl, Nick Foles. He was fired after a 3-13 season with the Chargers. That was a really bad year for us.
Then I must have been thinking. I think I'm confusing him with
Frank
maybe
Reich
went
and played was offensive coordinator for 3 seasons for the Chargers, all under
on bad years.
4 or 5 years, something like that. But yeah, he was our offensive coordinator for a couple seasons, but it was the downward trajectory of his career.
Well, what I was going to say is a lot of those guys that you mentioned are guys who have taken the next steps for guys taking the next step of quarterbacks. And I'm all for getting Herbert to the next level. But to me, the offensive coordinator next season for the Chargers is going to be the person who most understands the trench game and establishing the run and mirroring the pass off of that, because it's all complementary. I get that the passing is more explosive, but you have to have balance. The Chargers were so dominant when there was balance in the run game. Phillip Rivers to LT. Then we had, even the what is his name?
Ryan Matthews. There was
Ryan Matthews,
with Ryan
Melvin
Matthews.
Gordon. We and I love Eckler to death, and I think he could still be a good runner of the football. He's not if you're going to give him into a scheme where running is important, where you're getting 20 to 25 design rushes a game, I think that's not his skill set. We need another complementary back. We need to be able to run the ball effectively, and we need to be able to instill fear that we can run the ball. We can get 4 yards a carry. To me, that is the only thing that is missing from Justin Herbert's success from him to take the next level. He needs a complementary run game. And so to me, whoever has the best philosophy and the best vision for establishing a run game here in Los Angeles, that's my guy.
So I'll talk a little bit about some of these coaches. I know you haven't done a whole lot of research on them, but I have done a little bit, and I've kind of looked at a little bit of the success and background of some of these coaches. One of the big names, Byron Leftwich. Byron Leftwich, you got to think back before.
Jaguars quarterback.
Yeah, Jaguars quarterback. But with Leftwich, you have to think about what he's done with a quarterback that's not named Tom Brady. Right. And he is a very pass-happy offensive mind. Tom Brady led the NFL in passing yards and won an MVP under him. And then you go take a look at Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston also led the league in passing yards one season. He also had 30 interceptions that year. So you got to take it with a grain of salt.
Brett Favre type of player.
No
without
offense,
the wins.
Yeah, no offense under Byron Leftwich has been able to establish the run. So right off the bat, I don't care how much Bruce Arians talks him up. I don't think that it's good for the offense. I think it's good for stats, but I don't think it's going to win you games. Frank Reich also had a really hard time establishing the run as the offensive coordinator. He struggled to do it with the Chargers. He couldn't do it at all until he had as a head coach last season, the Colts running back. What's his name?
Jonathan Taylor?
Jonathan Taylor took over and had an 1,800-yard season, but Carson Wentz was not successful in that scheme either. And you can't really call him a play caller in that offense because he wasn't. He was a head coach. I would look more towards somebody like Joe Brady. Joe Brady, who is a really, really impressive college mind, kind of flamed out. I want to say he was with the Panthers, and then he ends up getting fired out of that role where they were just missing talent all over the place. Christian McCaffrey was injured. He goes to the Bills. The Bills are not known for being a really good running team, but they've been efficient when they have ran. And I think that he's a coach, a young coach who is being lauded really as a masterful mind in play calling. Nathaniel Hackett with the Packers, they were able to establish a run game under Aaron Rodgers and ended up taking Aaron Rodgers to an MVP season as well. Didn't really play all that well with Russell Wilson, who is supposed to be a really good quarterback. So what happened there? And he was the offensive play caller as the head coach with Broncos. Bill O'Brien, my thoughts on Bill O'Brien. Everybody knows the issues that happened with Bill O'Brien with the Texans, right? He wanted all this control, butted heads with the GM. I don't see Tom Telesco even allowing that situation to happen. And I feel like Bill O'Brien is kind of wants to be Bill Belichick. He wants all the control, and he's going to snipe you from behind kind of situation. Cliff Kingsbury, again, real pass-happy offense, great college coach, really failed with Kyler Murray in that whole situation. The last couple guys that I want to talk about, Bobby Slowick. I love everything that San Francisco does. San Francisco is so successful because of their run game. They've been able to do it multiple backs every single year. Doesn't matter what injuries that they have. Granted, Kyle Shanahan is the play caller in that situation, but you can't pass up the fact that he has been coaching under an offensive mastermind. The reason why Kyle Shanahan's job has been safe, even when he had, that 5-win season, when the injuries started piling up at the quarterback situation. Brian Johnson, the Eagles are not known as a very good rushing team, but they've got some pieces there. I don't necessarily know how well he's been able to establish that run game with the Eagles. That offense flowed through Jalen Hurts. Might be interesting to see how that kind of plays out, learn a little bit more about his background, where he comes from. And then the last two, Matt Weiss. He's what's the name of the coach over there that took San Francisco to a Super Bowl with Michigan?
Harbaugh.
His brother is a Raven. Harbaugh. Harbaugh's been able to establish a run game and a passing game. He was able to do it with Colin Kaepernick and Frank Gore. What kind of background do you think Matt Weiss has? Father's Charlie Weiss. Charlie Weiss was the Notre Dame coach for Brady Quinn. Something to kind of look a little more into there. And then the final guy, Todd Monken. Todd Monken has experience as in the NFL. He is the Georgia Bulldogs have always been able to run the ball. They've always had a decent quarterback. He's a guy that you might want to look at. I feel like those are the main guys. I feel like there's the Bengals quarterbacks coach. Got to learn a little bit more about that situation, but the Bengals are pretty even pass and run. They've been able to get it done both ways. If you're able to kind of peel him away from that situation, you got to look at it a little bit more. But that's kind of your whole offensive coordinator picture. And there may be some other guys out there that a lot of people don't know about yet that we're still waiting to hear about. We'll have to hear and wait and see who the Chargers plan to interview in the next couple of weeks. So that's about everything I can say about the whole offensive coordinator situation. I will be posting some more articles. Zach, if you want to go and do some research and post an article, go for it. But that's kind of where we're at with with the offensive coordinator search. Also, quarterback coach search is going to be instrumental as well.
I'm just happy that change is coming. I think a lot of people, you see the embarrassing loss and you just want to tear everything down. Not every foundational brick that was laid was bad. I think we got rid of the faulty ones. I think what we are building and what we have built is strong. It's time to take the next step, and an elite offensive coordinator, not even an elite, I think just a decent offensive coordinator will help us. If he's elite, you better watch out. We are going to be scary. I also just want to warn fans, we are not going to see the blockbuster offseason that we saw last year. The money's not there. The guys that we have in-house are good. It's time to find complementary pieces through the draft, find low contracts for veterans who have been kind of slept on to supplement what we have in-house. The talent is fine. It's fixing this offensive scheme and allowing Brandon Staley to continue and add to this defense that's in place, which I think is trending in the right direction. And you always have to be happy when you're making progress. I know it feels like we aren't making progress, but we made it to the playoffs. Next step is winning a playoff game and taking that as far as we can go. I'm still diehard Charger fan until the day I die. I think all of the fans that are talking about, oh, I'm done with the team. This was never a team for you anyway. This is for the strong. And it's just going to make it so much sweeter when we finally get to raise that Lombardi here soon.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be talking more about some off-season things as they happen. Maybe we'll talk about a little bit about this divisional round of the playoffs, make our way to the Super Bowl, and then get into the draft, free agency, all of that good stuff. This is kind of one of my favorite parts of the season is the off season. I don't know why. I just get excited talking about it, thinking about it.
Because you can't lose in the off season.
It's true. It's true. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you guys later.